All right, so this is my project-based base project learning assignment, chapter summary of 3, 4, and 5. Chapter 3 is called Imagining the Possibilities. Where to begin? So we're beginning with creation. The first step in project planning is to identify the big ideas, core concepts, and processes. The way I kind of view this is we have to know our final destination in order to know where we're going and calculate the steps of getting there. Good projects personally connect with the students, whether it's with their interests, experiences, or some other kind of frame of references. So if you can just self-relate that to yourself whenever you were in class and something really didn't make sense or you couldn't really find yourself using the information, you kind of people are just normally doze off, but if you see that it naturally affects you, you're more maybe intrigued to learn it and stay with the process. Textbooks can be used, but more for a reference tool than a foundation of a lesson. Project based learning is different because it tends to overlap with other disciplines. So, this means, unlike traditional ways of learning, project based learning, you could start with a certain discipline such as math or history. And as you continue to learn, it might dip into things like science or any kind of other discipline. So it's a pretty neat way to learn. Planning for rigor and digital age skills. So the three steps when we want to do this is we want to analyze, evaluate, and create. The book gives us a couple synonyms or other words we can use other than analyze, such as examine, explain, investigate, characterize, classify, compare, deduce, differentiate, discriminate, illustrate, and prioritize. These all give a more specific or easier way of maybe explaining the ways to go about analyzing. Second word or second step is to evaluate. If a student really doesn't understand or a teacher doesn't understand what evaluate means, the book gives them synonyms like judge, select, decide, justify, verify, improve, and so on. So any of those could maybe help better understand, but the teacher better understand that step. And the third straight step is to create or adapt or combine, compose, invent, design, imagine, propose, theorize, or formulate. So those are the three steps we want to look into when we're planning for rigor and digital age skills. And the final thing is essentials, central learning with digital tool and web. First, research. Second, make ideas creative and visible. Thirdly, collaborate. Fourth, project management. Fifth, reflect and iteration. And finally, provide supported studies. So just going through one of the some of these a little bit. First, we have to research. We have to do deep learning with experts and have some raw data. The second one is to make ideas visible and express ideas creatively. Um, we're just kind of saying here is bringing ideas into open allows us to talk about and make it meaningful. Um, Collaboration. These collaboration projects will invite collaboration and tools and services abound to help us learn together. And often learning together is easier and faster. Project management helps students bring coherence to their projects with tools that support good project management, reflect in iteration, encourage reflection and cycles of improvement. And lastly, support study or enrich using open educational resources. So this just helps students tap into shared textbooks, courses, curriculum. It gives them more options as they strive out on their own path of learning. Chapter 4, Strategies for Discovery. So some of the pitfalls, what are some of the pitfalls of discovery? we will be talking about them. Pitfalls, sometimes long on activities, short on learning outcomes. So there's no really reason why we should be using all these other technological inventions if we are getting the same outcome as the traditional method. So just really utilizing your time, utilizing your resources so that you can get more out of the um, student is what this is talking about. Technology over traditional practices. A lot of projects, a teacher will want to incorporate technology, but all it's really doing is the initial steps are all traditional practices. We're just putting technology over it. So you're not really utilizing technology as a tool to increase learning. Trivial thematic units. Instead of studying farms, study the job of farmers. This is just a simple way of doing a project with more than just research and reporting. And things like focus on, make sure you're focusing on informative assessments and authenticity. Those are big into learning. Steps to design your project. First step to design your product is to revisit. So by revisit, we mean revisit the conceptual framework, revisit the initial kind of main idea we were talking about. Make a final list of learning objectives for core subjects and allied disciplines, and also decide on a specific skills you want to address. And finally, identify learning dispositions you want to foster, such as persistence or reflection, things like that. Second step is to establish evidence of understanding. Third step is to plan the vehicle. And fourth step is to plan the project experience. Those are things that we want to make sure we look at. The general features of project include loosely designed. So this will help us be more creative. Wait a minute. This will help us be more creative and will leave possibilities for different learning paths. Um, Secondly, generative, causing students to construct meaning. Thirdly, center on main idea. This helps um, kind of drive the lesson plan. And fourthly, be more realistic so you can cross multiple disciplines, reach beyond school. We do this by involving others and tap into resources that are very rich in data. And most importantly, I think, is have students learn by doing. This way, it's very interactive. Chapter 5, Making Assessment Meaningful. So just a couple things from this chapter that I really found important were the planning for summative assessments. Three things that they kind of went over when planning for summative assessments was objectives, activities, and evidence. With regards to objectives, what will students learn through the project? That's the big question you have to ask yourself and make sure that your project kind of correlates with. Activities, what approaches might they take to go from not knowing to knowing? So how are students going to interact with the teaching methods, and how would they go about finding their final destination? And thirdly, evidence. And the question here is, what would the need to demonstrate to show they learn? What will they need to demonstrate to show they learn? So what's the test at the end of the tunnel to know that they have grasped all the information that you wanted them to grasp? The second one is planning for formative assessment. The most important thing is setting milestones, plan check-ins, and just work with your students so that you know and they feel sure that they are learning and they are on the right path. Some guides and tools for this could be some coffee talks, which doesn't necessarily need to be coffee to coffee. It could also be just talking outside at lunch or about anything and about specifically the project, so they know that you're with them through the process. Concept maps so that they can, or checklists so they can, through their progress through the project, they can check off all the little steps that you have made for them. Project logs also help, just so they can log in what they have done in the past couple days or weeks since you've assigned the project. And there are many more things that like this that we can help our students with by making. Thank you for listening, and this is my assignment for summary for chapters 3, 4, and 5.